the IMF has worked closely with the World Bank. Together, the two institutions now regularly lend funds to developing nations, assisting them in the development of a public infrastructure capable of supporting a sound mercantile economy that can contribute in the international arena. In order to ensure that these nations can actually enjoy equal and legitimate access to trade with their industrialized counterparts, the World Bank and IMF must work closely with GATT. While GATT was initially meant to be a temporary organization, it now operates to encourage the dismantling of trade barriers, namely, tariffs and quotas. The Bretton Woods Agreement existed from 1944 to 1971, after which it was replaced by the Smithsonian Agreement, an international contract pioneered by U.S. President Richard Nixon out the necessity to accommodate for Bretton Woods's shortcomings. Unfortunately, the Smithsonian Agreement possessed the same critical weakness. While it did not include gold US dollar convertibility, it maintained fixed exchange rates, a facet that did not accommodate the United States' ongoing trade deficit and the international need for a weaker US dollar. As a result, the Smithsonian Agreement was short-lived. Ultimately, the exchange rates of the world evolved into a free market, where supply and demand were the sole criteria that determined the value of a currency. While this did and still does result in a number of currency crises and greater volatility between currencies, it also allowed the market to become self-regulating, and thus could dictate the appropriate value of a currency without any hindrances. As for Bretton Woods, perhaps its most memorable contribution to the international economic arena was its role in changing the international perception about the US dollar. While the euro is a revolutionary currency blazing new frontiers in both social behavior and international trade, the US dollar remains the world's reserve currency of choice. This is due, in large part, to the Bretton Woods Agreement. By establishing dollar-gold convertibility, the dollar's role as the world's most accessible and reliable currency was firmly cemented. So while Bretton Woods might be a doctrine of yesteryear, its impact on the US dollar and international economics still resonates today. Although U.S. President Nixon was confident that the end of the Bretton Woods system would bring about better times for the international economy, he was not a believer that the free market could dictate a currency's true valuation in a fair and catastrophe-free manner. Nixon and many well-respected economists at the time reasoned that an entirely unstructured foreign exchange market would result in competing devaluations, which, in turn, would lead to the breakdown of international trade and investment. The end result, Nixon and his board of economic advisors argued, would be global depression. In response, the Smithsonian Agreement was introduced a few months later. Hailed by President Nixon as the greatest monetary agreement in the history of the world, the Smithsonian Agreement strived to maintain fixed exchange rates without the backing of gold. Its key difference from the